Like, I'm okay if I'm with somebody and your baby daddy is good friends with you and y'all need to take a trip with the kids. Yo, go. I'm good.
Wow, that's very secure.
Yeah, I'm not worried about anything like that. If these people are still good people in your lives that could kind of still be good benefactors or like just like influences in your life, yo, please keep them. I should never dictate how your life should be. You know how short our lives are? Like, no one should ever dictate how your life should ever be.
Welcome to Guys That Listen. I'm Peter, and today we got special guest Baby U, aka Daniel, on the pod.
How you doing,
bro?
Thank you, Peter.
Of course. Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, so I'm DJ Baby U, aka Daniel, and I'm born and raised in Toronto, Canada. I'm Japanese Canadian. I'm 46 years old. Been here in LA for the last 10 years. 6 years prior in Atlanta before that. And just been living in the music industry.
Wow, moved around a lot.
Yeah.
What was that always a thing that you did growing up, or was that more of a later year?
Traveling was a big part of my life for sure, especially when I got into the whole DJing thing, even just being out in Toronto, Canada. But I knew at one point in my life for my career, because this was pre Drake and Weeknd, the era of like the emergence of all these incredible artists, like taking it so global. So I knew I needed to be in a more active place in the music industry, and that's one of the reasons why I moved in 2008 to Atlanta. And a lot of people ask me like, why didn't you go to LA or New York right away? But honestly, I just didn't know the right connections at that point in my life. I just knew the right people in Atlanta. I knew the biggest promoter, the biggest club owner, and they were actually flying me out there 2 years prior when before I moved to Atlanta. So
Wow.
I knew I was in good hands, and that's kind of like, well, you know what, I gotta get the hell out of here. And I moved to Atlanta.
You said that was 2008?
2008, yeah.
2008. How did you connect with these people in Atlanta?
So I don't know if you remember a rapper named Jin that got popular on BET Rap Freestyle Fridays, and my management were big promoters in Toronto, and they were the first to bring him out to Canada. We did all the shows in Toronto, obviously, right across Canada, and I was a DJ for him. So, and at that point too, Jin was known for every big Asian promoter in every city in the US as well. So he was getting booked everywhere, and that's when they knew about me, because I was doing a lot of his stuff for him. And one of the guys in Atlanta, who was a big promoter from Philly originally, in DC area, you know, the whole DMV area, killing in Atlanta, and he was a fan of DJs as well, and he found me on XM radio, but then also knew about me through the Gin kind of circuit, and then that's when he booked me. We were coming out like here once in a while here and there, and that's when we kind of reconnected again years on later, and then we're like, you know what, I want to move out here. And then and at the time too, like we were I was doing mixtapes for Sierra when she first came to Toronto. Jagged Edge, we had him out in Toronto for the first time. So, and they're all Atlanta people. And then we did a tour with 112, who are, you know, homegrown Atlanta. And it kind of just made sense. I was already making friends in the industry that were all from Atlanta. So it just kind of all worked out.
Was that your first big move?
Yeah, like at that time I was already traveling to Europe and Asia DJing across Canada, but like definitely that was the next stepping stone in my career for sure, being in the US, because it was, you know, I'm a radio guy as well. And so being on the radio in Toronto, you know, I was on the first hip hop station, Flow 93.5, moved on to Kiss 92.5, which is like a Kiss out here. It's like the biggest pop station in Canada. And then I got onto XM radio. But then once I moved to Atlanta, and my main goal was because I've been in radio so long, since I started DJing, like from college radio and up to commercial radio, what happened was I got on the biggest hip hop station there, V103, became the 5 o'clock DJ, and I'm still on that station. And the texts and messages I was getting at the time, and this was still when Instagram wasn't big yet, Twitter was the biggest thing. And not just on Twitter, but people were texting, like Jermaine Dupri would text me, Sierra, Carrie Hilson would text, yo, you're killing it right now on the radio. And it's like, that's what I wanted. I want him to kind of hear me in a place where they live, and that's what I got. Because, you know, when I was in Toronto and I would work with these guys, you know, I did mixtapes with Kanye West, The Game, and whatever, and it's like they'll come to Toronto and then they won't come back for another 3 years or so, it wasn't like how it is now where they come more often to Canada, but like back then it was, you know, 3 years is a long time. They were like openers, and now they're like the biggest thing, winning Grammys and everything. So it's like sometimes they'll come back and we'll have a whole moment together. Like we did mixtapes together, we did interviews together, and they won't even remember who I am. And I couldn't be mad at that. Like, you haven't seen me in 3 years. You made so many more people during that time, and you're such a big entity now, right? So that's why I knew that for me, I was like, yo, I need to go to a place where they could listen to me every day. And then that's kind of like how the whole Atlanta thing worked out for me. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's pre-social media, basically.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
pretty dope. How do you feel now that you're in this place in LA now? Your career has definitely developed a lot.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
you used to work all these people, like you said, within 3 years, their careers have completely taken off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've had some kind of thoughts as to where your career was supposed to go and like what you want to do. Was there any time that you felt a little bit undetermined, or maybe kind of taken back as to like maybe you felt like, oh, we were on the same path, like like maybe why am I here and why are they there, you know?
I think definitely when I was younger, when I was starting out, there was a lot of, you know, there will be haters too. Like, I wouldn't do anything wrong or anything. They just won't sync with me. And you know, there was a couple times that I just wanted to quit. Like, cause you know, you work so hard on something and it takes 1 second for someone to tell you that you're shit. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like in anything, right? But, you know, I stayed with it. And, you know, coming into LA, you know, one of my main goals was to kind of get into the Vegas scene, and also being part of a DJ collective. And also the music thing was booming in 2014 and pre-pandemic. So, you know, during that time, it was amazing. But, you know, there's definitely times when I'll be thinking to myself like, yo, how long can I keep this going? But, you know, definitely in the 2005ish, when Akon and David Guetta came out with that song together and kind of put the DJ thing on a pedestal, that's when I was like, okay, I thought I was gonna be done with DJing around 30, but now it's like these guys are like 40s and 50s and still headlining shows. And I'm like, yo, I could still kind of keep going. You know, guys like, you know, Jazzy Jeff, who's a good friend of mine, you know, rest in peace, his mom just passed away, but like, he's still killing it, doing tours. And, you know, obviously he's a legendary DJ, one of the first hip hop groups in the world to ever win a Grammy, and et cetera, with Will Smith. So, but yeah, there's pressures now. Now, fast forwarding kind of like today, you know, it's not definitely the same anymore. The pandemic and just the economy alone just kind of changed the whole kind of the scope of like booking DJs and how to be booked and just the whole business of everything. So, you know, those are definitely struggles that I'm going through right now, and doing my best to kind of keep up with everything. You know, just like football, we were talking about in the car, but like, you know, you only have a short span once you get drafted and get on a team. You might have a 2-3 year span to prove to yourself that you could last 10 years in the game, right? Because all these kids are coming in all the time. And just like anything else, like, you know, this entertainment thing is the same thing too. Like, you know, some of these artists, you know, and even DJ, they become so big, but then it's just if you don't keep up with something, it just kind of dwindles down and you become forgotten. So it's one of those things, like, it's hard to keep up sometimes, but you know, I'm always trying to find a way to kind of innovate myself and just kind of hang out with the young people still, and but then find my own new thing in this new realm, being more of a mature DJ and whatever. Yeah.
In your terms of keeping up, like what does that mean?
Well, you know, keeping up with the times of how music has changed, how people listen to music, how consumers come to events and shows. Like, you know, now more than ever, you know, big clubs don't exist as much anymore, whereas before it did, where people would love to go to a club that held 2,000 people every Friday or Saturday. Now it's like, we like the more speakeasy size that only holds 250, 300, you know, have a good time. And if we're going to do something big, it's going to be a festival, like a Coachella, EDC to whatever it could be. And so kind of understanding like that, it kind of changes the scope of my business too, because I'm a big room DJ, but then if we don't get picked to do that, it's like to be in the festival, you have to be a A-lister DJ, right? And it's like, not everybody could get there. Even if you're a B-lister, you have to have a song out, and it's like a whole process of things that you have to do, which is, you know, doable, but it's like not just for everybody, like, you know. Yeah. So there's that balance that you have to understand, and kind of.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. There's a lot of things going on now.
There's lots to keep up with.
And so those are the things that kind of like, okay, I love DJing. This is what I want to do, keep doing. But then there's other things I can do now, like in the music industry, like, because I toured with so many artists as well, from like TLC, Monica, Young Jeezy, Offset from the Migos. Like I got to learn how to even help manage these artists as well, just be close to them, have dope conversations with them, and et cetera like that. So it's like, maybe I could do something on the A&R side, maybe kind of management side, and I love nurturing people as well. And so it's like, I think about things like that. And then I feel like I have a good eye for things as well. So marketing, branding are a couple things that I took on during the pandemic as well. Because, my stuff has been pretty well done. Like, when it comes to branding, like, my first website was a video game. I was a Super Mario. And you had to control me on the website. And if you wanted to see my top 10, you go to this section, and then you could change my clothes and my hairstyle. I was known for like different haircuts and everything like that. It was actually pretty intense. I was like, damn, I wish I still had that website though. But my friend created that for me. We kind of brainstormed some ideas and whatnot. But yeah, I always had an eye and interest in that as well. So like I got into the whole scene of like, I helped open a cannabis store in Thailand in 2002 to like beginning of 2003. I also helped out with a vegan snack company called Whims in Austin, and a vape cannabis company out here called Butter. And so, yeah, so it's always about transitioning more, because I thought about it myself. Like it's overwhelming to think, what, maybe DJs, there's gonna be a point where I can't do it anymore, right? So to think about starting over in some other field like data analysis, I don't even know, whatever thing that could keep me going, a 9-to-5 job which I've never done in my life, right? Oh, wow. So it's like overwhelming because once you get to a certain point in your life and do pretty good things and reach this goal, everything has to be here. It's just like the joke we talk about, like you sit first class one day, you can't sit in the back anymore. It's like, you know what I mean? And so to kind of like start all over from the bottom, sure, I'm going to know all the steps better than me not knowing anything. I've accumulated all the experiences I've had in my life from like when I started DJing up until now in the entertainment industry. So that will help me get to a certain level quicker. But even just to think about starting something completely new is definitely overwhelming and kind of discouraging sometimes too,
How do you handle that though? Like what's your thought process going into something such as restarting?
I mean, I do a lot of wellness things that helps me humble myself, keep my ego in check, and also just realize what's most important. Like I think that way that helps me not put myself down. I think a lot of people may feel that because you're putting too much pressure on yourself. And when you don't take care of your wellness, from your mental health, gut health, like, physical health, and just everything else, the best way you possibly can, I think you get distracted by being so unhealthy. And then you just come into this corner and you're like punishing yourself all the time. And I think that's one of the things that helped me a lot. Like even being here in LA, like I do these walks, like I try to do 10,000, 15,000 steps a day. And just being in the sun alone, I'm like, holy shit, I could never do this, living in Toronto, like sometimes of the year, because it's just too cold or it's just too gloomy, So I think that's one of the key things that I concentrate on to make sure that my mind's right. And then I could tackle whatever, I used to make a lot of money, and it's like now comparing it to what I make now, it's like, holy shit. Like even my accountant look like, is this number right? I'm like, yo, dude, this the fucking, usually anybody that's has a huge difference in like income like that, yo, I know that you're gonna be like not in a good place mentally. Like you're gonna be, and but I'm still like good. I'm so happy still. I'm appreciative of every moment and people around me. And I think once you shift kind of like the mentality of how you look at life, and also kind of, again, looking at your wellness and just kind of taking care of that, I think you could tackle every problem a little bit better.
No, yeah. I 100% agree. People ask me, funny enough, like about my situation, and I'm like, oh, the situation is still the same. My mental is just better. And it feels like you can move on to the next thing. It's not like a dead end, But being in an industry such as like nightlife and DJing and stuff like that, health is usually not the first thing you think about. Right. So how'd you get into that?
I don't know. It's just, I think growing up, like I was into so much, sports all my life. And then I think my dad was a pretty big social drinker, and there was like a lot of embarrassing times, family moments that embarrassed me, and it really turned me off from drinking. So I never drank growing up. High school parties, I was that kid trying to stop all my friends from trying drugs and smoking and like drinking. I'm like, yo, don't like da da da. But you know, kids are kids, and you know, we're all curious beings, and we want to try all these things, right? So I kind of came from that place where just health was everything to me. So, but I didn't start really drinking till maybe 10 years ago. Yeah.
In your 30s?
Yeah. And I was like, you know what?
shit.
Let me just try. Let's see what's going on. But then that's when I started to realize, I'm like, oh, okay, this is how everyone feels in the club. Now I get it. Like, so now I'm like more of a social, like, you know, if I go out with friends, like celebrating something, I'll drink, no problem. I'm not a real like drinker at home or anything like have a beer or anything like that, or wine with dinner. I'm not that type, but I've been always kind of in that realm, I think, from the beginning. And as I got older and more, you know, it was a little bit tough. Like I tried to come out with like a wellness kind of fun cookbook in Atlanta it was like 2009, 10-ish. And so I had all my friends that were celebrities, like from Jermaine Dupri, all the industry heads, and even popular like fitness people donate their top 5 songs and also like their recipe of like what they do that is healthy. And kind of so I had all that, and then I was gonna have like different recipes that I thought that were dope that I cooked at home or whatever. It was like nothing, it was not gonna be published or nothing. It was just gonna be like a PDF just for my friends to send out. But that time there wasn't enough information on the internet for me to get the right information about health. There wasn't that much. Everything was proven wrong like 2 years later, and I was like, yo man, I can't fucking put this out. People not gonna believe what I'm writing. Like it's wrong. Like it said it was good like 2 years ago, but now it's like completely wrong. It's proven, you know. So that's when I was like, you know what, I'm gonna hold on to this, whatever. But then now more than ever, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people see on Instagram, whatever, everybody's like a health enthusiast and just know everything about whatever, you know, eat this,
definitely.
eat that, don't do this, don't do that. And there's only like certain places where you could get the right information.
100%.
And so that kind of encouraged me to kind of get into it even more. And it's kind of embedded in my thing now. It's like, you know, a lot of friends come to me, say, oh, should I eat this? And I'm like, and even if I don't know 100%, I'll be like, I'll go on PubMed. That's like the, you know, where all the articles are that proves everything. And it's just like, okay, it says here that maybe you should look into a little bit more. But like, yeah, if I'm going to come out with this thing, which I want to, I'm going to have everything cited with every article, like everything's proven. Nothing's coming out of my ass. Because, you know, at the end of the day too, like, sure, I'm not a doctor, but I know what works for me. All the things that I implemented in my life, like, yo, and that things works for me. Like how we talked about, like, yeah, sure, we're not professionals, but like we know what works for us because it's the experience that taught us to understand it, right? So, but yeah, that's kind of like, you know, it's always been an important part for me, the whole wellness and kind of like eating right, because even DJs, and you're right, like people in the industry, a lot of them, and it's crazy. Like I talked to some of my friends about it because, you know, there's some DJs and even artists that are passing away way too early now. Like they're having diabetes, stroke, this and that. And all, you know, I don't want to offend anybody, but these are a lot of things that could be avoided from if you just understand prevention of just like, you know, not eating certain things or having a certain, you know, healthy lifestyle, right?
I don't think anyone should be offended by something that could kill you. You know what I mean? Like it's a conversation that I find myself having in my head a lot, especially, you know, you get to an age where you're like, damn, you have some friends, and again, not to offend anyone, but like bigger friends, you're at risk, right? And it's
for
just
sure.
like, bro, like, yeah, maybe this shit was funny, something we could joke about like when we were fucking younger, but now it's like, hey, let's get back into shape. Let's do something.
Sure.
I have a couple friends now where, you know, because this is an awkward conversation to have, right? Where I'll just kind of like gently like nudge them into doing little things step by step, like going to the gym. You know, I'll be like, hey, yo, actually got a buddy pass to the gym. Like, you want to join me sometimes? Yeah. You know, I'm not quite saying like you're fat as shit, like you should go to the gym. I'm just like, hey, you know, maybe we should start. You know, let's go somewhere, and then they'll think to themselves like, oh, I'm so out of shape. Like I kind of want to get back into shape. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's start that back up. And you know, the only reason why I can have this conversation is because they're my friend, right?
Yeah.
And I think in your case, being that, you know, while you're not expert in like medicine or anything like that, you do know what works for the people similar to you. So for instance, you can't give DJs like sleep advice and be like, yeah, you need to sleep at normal hours. That shit doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't.
So it's like very specific to like your audience and the people that you work with, right?
Yeah.
So you know how that works, and that's why you care about it the way you do, because 100%. You know the industry is full of the opposite.
Yeah. And that's actually a smart way of kind of like encouraging people in your circle to like, be more healthier. Instead of telling them that you need to do something, be like, hey, I'm going here. You should join me. If they say yes, that's the best thing. If they say no, you're going to try again later, which is like, a natural, it's like, okay, I'll come this time, like whatever. And hopefully that, translates into something else. But like, yeah, like the whole health thing, like when I see certain people in my industry, and I'm sometimes so confused by it, because it's like they're legends and they're experts and so amazing at their craft in this part of their life. But this other part, the health part, is like they're homeless, or they're just like they just not educated enough, or just they're not good at it. And that saddens me and is really confusing to me, because you're so good at one thing, but you're not good at something else. And it's I get it. It's like, a lot of things has to do with upbringing and, just habitual things that you grew up with and you get used to it. Sometimes you get addicted to whatever it is like that you're eating. I get it. And, to try something new, to try change your habits that you've been doing for 30 years, 20 years, whatever it is, it is overwhelming. Like, some of the dumb things that I started doing, like, 10 years ago, I'm like, I started eating with my left hand instead. And I brush my teeth with my left hand. I'm not left-handed, I'm right-handed. But like, it's just little things that I do just like that to give me confidence, so it could translate into something else when I'm starting something new. Because when you could do something like that, like, write with your left hand now, or do different things that you couldn't, like maybe throw a ball or whatever, that just give you, I felt like it'll help me, give me confidence on other more important things later when I want to start. So I won't feel overwhelmed when I was like, oh, I can't do that. I'm like, you can if you want to. Just like how our friends like that may not be as healthy. He's like, oh man, I'm too out of shape. There's no way, it's too late for me. I'm like, no, not really. Like, you know what I mean? So there's little things that I do to kind of boost myself and just kind of trick my brain to feel.
But it sounds like you've always been the guy for change, though. Like from everything from moving, trying different things, trying keep up with the Joneses, stuff like that. It's like there's always something that you're trying to improve on. Yeah. So it's, again, I'm not trying to bash the other people, but it's easy when you're in a position that's constantly changing. Yeah. Right. If you've always been that guy, you can keep up with the change because you're constantly always changing. But if they're so set in their ways, it's difficult, right? A perfect example would be, I use my dad as an example. Super fucking difficult to get this guy to change anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, he just went to the hospital recently for, COPD, which is, when your insides are inflamed and you can't breathe, right? And they're like, yo, no more smoking cigarettes. Went back to smoking cigarettes right away. It's a hard thing to kick. And while cigarettes are deemed more addictive just in the sense of what it's made for, like there are other things they're just addictive by patterns and habits. You know what I mean? So going back to what you're saying, why these people are so good at their crafts and why they're so terrible at their health, like that's probably something they've always done. Their craft was something that they probably didn't change. They just kept on working at it and like perfecting it. And their health was something that didn't change and it kept on getting worse. Yeah, exactly. So to get those people in a position where they're willing to change, typically something drastic has to happen. Unfortunately, sometimes it's too late. Right. And that's a question that we got to ask ourselves sometimes, where it's like, how long do we wait for? I've had friends go into the hospital for things that we definitely could have talked about a decade prior, where I'm like, maybe you should reconsider this. But I was like, oh, that's kind of awkward to talk about. Yeah.
Even sometimes when something drastic does happen, it's still not enough for them to change. Like I've seen people have almost light strokes and they still go back to their, I'm like, yo, you almost died. Like, I know one of my friends who had a stroke and then a heart attack while the operation, and he's a quadriplegic. He was one of the biggest DJs in Montreal. And I go visit him as much as possible, but the doctors say he hit his peak of getting any better. Like he could barely speak anymore and whatever. But even before that, like I would talk to him and be like, yo, you need to stop this. Like why are you eating this like big breakfast and then a burger and then a whole Filipino dinner, and then that's like every day. And he's like, well, I go to the gym. I'm like, but you don't go to the gym. Like, you do weights and whatever, but that's still, it doesn't make it even. Like, you're eating like you're Michael Phelps training for the Olympics. Like, you know what I mean? You're not burning that much. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, I think, like, so I know the examples. Even my dad, you know, he had high blood pressure. Luckily for me, he was more open-minded about change. And so because I was so into wellness, I'm like, listen, you don't need to take these pills anymore. This is what we're going to do. I changed his complete diet. He doesn't drink casually anymore. He just drinks like when we go out and have outings or whatever. But like, you know, before it was like 1 beer a day, 2 beers a day, and then, you know, eating whatever he wanted. And now that we changed everything, he's off the meds and his joints are better, you know, all this things like, okay, this does really work. And so I think once it starts working too, it gives people the motivation to be like, oh, okay, then I should keep going. Like, you know, sometimes be human, you know, have fun still, do whatever you want to do. You don't have to be perfect. But I think when it comes to like everyday things, I think the more you put in work within your wellness, you know, you're going to have, you know, my friends joke about it all the time. What, you trying to live until you're 200? I'm like, no, I'm trying to be the most efficient I could be while I'm here. And kind of like having all these examples from my friends passing away early, or having these, you know, huge like diseases happening to them. And even for me, you know, going back to what you're saying, like our sleep schedules are different, you know. And when I was younger, some of my friends that had 9-to-5 jobs that couldn't really relate to me, would tell me, it's like, oh, Daniel, you sleep so late. You know, I sleep at 3 or 4 in the morning because that's when I come home from clubs anyways. And then I don't have to wake up early. I wake up at 12 or 1. I still get my 8 hours, but it was just a different time zone, really. I was literally living in Japan, I think, in Toronto. Like, that's how I was living. And I truly thought that maybe I should change my, you know, wake up at 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning, go to sleep by 10 or 11, whatever. And so I started doing that during the week while I was not DJing. But then when I'm DJing the weekend, the Thursday or Friday, when midnight comes around, I'm just like falling asleep. And it's actually crazy because most of the times driving home, I wouldn't remember. And I wasn't drinking back then either. Whoa. I just dozing off like this. And one of the last times, I was literally maybe 6 houses down from my parents' house coming home. I literally almost died. I parked. I fell asleep, parked, hit a parked car, smashed into it. All my records, it was still records at the time. It was Serato was just about to start. All my records from the van, like the back, flew to the front seat, like 4 or 5 cases. They were like 50 pounds each, right? Missed my head. Like, the car was totaled. The cops came. They're like, oh my God, they thought I was drinking driving. My dad comes running from like the house and everything. And the funniest part, this is not funny, but like the funniest part was the person's car I hit. She was a person that was renting the basement at that house. She starts coming out, like, oh my God, my fucking car. And I was like, you know, she was screaming. But then after, you know, like 30 minutes later came to me, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't even be caring about my car. I'm so glad you're okay. The reason why I was yelling like that was because I just got my car back from another car accident. So I was like, oh shit, my bad, dude. Your car's fucked up again. But yeah, I think once you kind of like see life that way, like you kind of like almost lose your life. And I'm always been a traveler, always wanting to experience so many things. I think that's what made me a person who always open to change, always want to do better, always want to try new things. And you know,
so, you know, talking about change, the people who, you know, I'm starting to see a lot of people who were stuck in their ways, and you can't rationalize with them, right? And if there's anything I'm understanding now why they're so hesitant to change, a lot of times it's because they're holding on to something.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like whatever reason in the past, you know, like maybe for people who have eating disorders, you know, that it could easily be something like from their childhood, like their parents, like, you know, fed them this way, and they lost their parents, and this is like the only way that they could be reminded of that. So I mean, I think a lot of it is not much as much of a question of like why you don't want to change, but like what made you start that in the first place?
I think being in Atlanta, where kind of just really seeing the different income brackets. I didn't really get to see that in Toronto too much because, you know, I was pretty privileged. Like my parents did pretty well at the time, and we grew up in a very multicultural place, but also a lot of like very wealthier like Jewish community was there, and so we, you know, I didn't really get to see all the boroughs. Like I didn't really go to it. There's a place called Jane and Finch and like all that. Like I didn't have too many friends there. I knew a couple people there, and sometimes I'll go there, but it was like a drastic change, like going to the hood and whatever. But like kind of when I went to Atlanta, I finally saw the difference of the income brackets, and then the more lower you went, the black community was more prevalent there, and the Native people, and that's one thing I noticed. And then when I went to these areas and hung out with certain people, and I'm like, you know, for me, when I went to Atlanta, you know, there was no racism or anything, but there was some ignorant comments as jokes or whatever. But it mostly came from my black friends or like my black people. And I'll have conversations with my black friends all the time about this, and they won't even think about it. They're like, holy shit, that is actually whatever. But as a joke, we're like, oh my God, we got to worry about some of these other people that might, you know, hate on Asians and black people. We got to stick together. Like, why are you making these jokes about me? But like, I realized and kind of had to understand their culture a little bit more. And I was like, okay, 400 years of slavery. What does that mean? You can't trust nobody other than other black people that are going through it with you and God. So that's, you know, understanding their history with that. And then moving forward, finally being able to kind of integrate with everybody, still not getting the right treatment. And then even with all that, to me, they're still getting pushed down till this day. Like I believe in it. I see it and it still happen. I'm in the black culture a lot with like, you know, being in hip hop and whatever. I'm grateful for them accepting me being part of their culture. And kind of when I understood that, I was like, yo, how could they really learn about me as a Japanese Canadian? They only see me in movies and stuff. It's like, sure, I'm Korean, Chinese, and everything all in one, right? You know what I mean? So kind of like when I understood all that, and that translated into how their lifestyle was, how they took care of their health, and what they knew about how to be healthy. And when I understood about my black friends, and even not just black, but even other immigrants that were in that low poverty line or to like the low income line or whatever, the less education they had about health, and that what turned me off about, you know, just not being healthy for me anyway. And then kind of put more emphasis on trying to do better on my mental health and even how to eat healthier, number one first. Because I couldn't understand why these people would just go and buy these, you know, pre-made dinners in the frozen aisle. And I get it though, but that was the cheapest. It's the quickest and easiest, and it just makes sense for them for what they think it's supposed to be. But at the end of the day, it doesn't beat a fresh cooked meal that you put the best ingredients in and, you know, your heart in and whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like what you said. They're just a product of their circumstance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
If your parents are not home or they gotta be at work and you can't cook for yourself because you're a child, maybe a, you know, TV dinner microwave, you know, in a minute is probably the best
pizza
best thing
pocket
to
or
do,
something.
you know?
It's just quicker.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get to the point where it's like going back to what you're saying about education, right? Like you know, now the internet has so much education on like health and what you cannot eat. And like to be healthy now, it's not as expensive as it used to be. You know, obviously there are things that are really priced high, but if you want to just live to a certain standard of being healthy, like it's not that difficult, right? Fruits,
for sure.
veggies, like your proteins and stuff like that. It's pretty basic for the most part. But if you don't know that, going back to what you're saying, if you're not educated on it, then it's really difficult. And also like back then, at least, you know, in the 90s and stuff like that, things were getting debunked all the time. So what do you believe, you know? And I think now it's like people are starting to understand, okay, well, what works for me? Right? People start experimenting. Like me, I'm a huge advocate for experimentation, right? Like I'll hear about it, I'll hear the science, I'm like, that's cool, but like, does it work for me? Now try to implement it, and I'll see like, oh, this does or does not work for me.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other variables too, right? Your lifestyle, that changes everything.
Of course, yeah.
Like the levels of stress, the things that you deal with, that changes
Yeah.
everything.
Changes
Your
everything.
hormones, that
Yeah.
changes everything. So you might not even get the same results.
Yeah.
But for me, I think experimenting and seeing how it works for you is the best thing. That's why I don't push the things that I do on other people. I let them know how it works for me.
Yeah.
And if they want to pursue it, I'm like, cool, this is what I did. Cool. You could do it too.
And I kind of do the same thing too. I'm like, I never really push anything unless they ask something about it, and I'll just give them what I think works for me and what I think will work. But you just being a living example for your friends and people around you in your circle, that's enough for them to be watching you and be like, what's working with this guy? Because, you know, for me, I'm sick and tired of hearing people be like, oh, wait, how old are you? And you know, I've been in Uber rides, and the driver will ask me like, yo, what college do you go to? And this was just last year. And I'm like, bro, I graduated like 20 something years ago, man. And it's like, but then everybody ends off by saying, oh, it's because you're Asian. And like, bro, have you been to Asia? Some of these people don't look well, man. Like, cause they're so stressed with work and, you know, their culture of drinking and smoking, whatever, that ages them, right? And I'm like, yo, I sit them down for like 20 minutes. This is what I do. I take care of my wellness and my health, and this is why I look a certain way. And so kind of like all that, like, you know, it's such an important thing to take care of your mental health and kind of stress levels and just the way you know, eat and breathe and everything else, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you've been taking care of your physical health for a long time. When did you get into the mental health aspect of it?
I think around my kind of like my late 20s. That's when I, you know, being in the entertainment industry, it makes you grow up faster than being not in the entertainment industry. You get to experience and see things that I don't think regular people get to see, and they may see it, but not until later times in their lives. We just kind of experience it a little bit earlier, and kind of in a microscope, but also on steroids too. Like, it's just so intense, you know. I think like around like 27, I realized like there's things that I want to work on in my life. There's things that bother me for who I am. And when it comes to relationships, to just viewing people, to like myself and whatever. And then I finally got into it by going to see a counselor. Like when I was 30, I went for like 6-8 months. And it was one of the best things I've ever did.
Just out of nowhere, you're like,
yeah,
I'm going to see a counselor.
I'm going. Yeah. And actually couple of my friends were in that space already, but they're such good friends. They'll never tell me to go or anything like that. But they were proud of me that I went later. But like one of my other friends, she was already going. She's like, oh, you should try it. So I went. I found a good counselor in Atlanta at the time, and it was amazing. So, and that kind of encouraged me even more. Once I had so many aha moments about why I was like this because of the upbringing of that to this. Now I understood myself more than ever. And that gave me kind of like the push to kind of even get into it more, like just reading more self-aware books, listening to some podcasts and whatnot like that.
Do you mind sharing a couple of aha moments?
So I would say like all my relationship things, like, you know, why I didn't trust people, you know, and I think being in relationships in high school when the other person has baggage or whatever, and all these things happen when cheating happens, and I couldn't understand any of that. I didn't understand some of those things at all, and why a person could ever do that to someone else. And so that made, and now not only that, I'm in the entertainment industry, being a hot DJ on the streets of Toronto, and it's like trying to date at the same time, and you don't even trust anybody anymore, because if you can't trust, you know, the experiences that you had before, you're like, okay, why am I feeling this way? And you know, you become angry at everything. You're only giving 50% to everybody that walks into your life. And because even you know, before, like some friends that I had like for 5 years or 6 years, it's like, Daniel, we known each other for a while, but I still don't know you. And I'm like, yo, but you could ask me anything, I'll tell you. But it wasn't about that. It was about me just sharing it with them willingly, for them to get into my world.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I learned about that whole thing, about just upbringing and you know, because I had immigrant, you know, parents, and I just, you know, it was a standard Japanese couple. I've never seen them hold hands in my life. never seen them kiss, never seen affection in my life like that. Wow. So that definitely was one thing that was an aha moment where I was definitely shy because, you know, I would never be on this podcast if I was still that person, or I'd never be in front of like thousands of people DJing or anything like that, you know. But I knew those are things I wanted to work on, trust and like being in front of people and, you know, all that things. And kind of like, I remember one of my other friends as well, he would talk about how, oh, I'm best friends still with all my exes and whatever. And he's moved on. He has a new girlfriend. I'm like, and I thought in my head, I thought he was crazy. You're friends with you're friends with your ex, and you're okay with her being friends. Nah, that's not happening. Like I couldn't understand it. I'm like, because I will never let that happen. You can't even be friends with anybody from your past. That all stemmed from all the hurt that I had, right? I don't look at it like that anymore, obviously, but those are the things kind of, you know, I wanted to learn how did my friend be able to be that type? I want to be him in that department. Yeah. Just like how I talk about like, yo, you're so good in one craft, but you're not good in one thing. I want to be good at every craft in my life. Like, you know what I mean? So that was a definite motivation to kind of keep going with all the wellness things and just, you know, the aha moments. Like there's so many other things too, but yeah.
You spoke a little bit about your parents not really showing affection to each other.
Yeah.
You know, growing up, how did you show love to your significant others and people you dated? I'm sure not having an example makes it a little difficult.
I mean, I think it wasn't like, I was definitely more a smothering type of person. Like, so I was into it being a partner, you know, it wasn't like I was a block and it was like I'm trying to be my dad or mom. It wasn't like that. I was probably the most opposite. But definitely I didn't really get to learn anything about how to control my emotions in certain scenarios to have good communication with the other person. But we're all kids. Like there's no way nobody teaches you this. Like your parents don't teach you this. School doesn't teach you this. And it's like your friends don't know shit either. Like we're all trying to experiment to understand what works and what doesn't work. It's like, it was so very ABC, like cheated on you. No, we're going to fuck them up. And that was it. And it's like, no, it doesn't supposed to work like that. Yeah. There's a reason why this happened. You know, there's a reason why people do these things. Like you have to take accountability too for sure they're the wrong, but you still have to take accountability too. Because you know, there's one thing I learned. One of the girls that I dated in Atlanta, and it's probably one of my last main ones that I had, and we kind of fulfilled each other's insecurity at the time. I was already into the wellness space, but I was still not completely ready to be in a healthiest relationship. But for me, I always wanted to be part of a family, a bigger family. I was always envying my friends that had 50 people at their Christmas and Thanksgiving dinners, whereas for us, we were the only ones in Toronto. So it was always our family only. So that's why for me, going back to Japan means a lot to me, just kind of like keep in touch with my cousins, my, you know, extended family and whatever. And so having that, I knew dating this girl after a week, I'm like, this is going to be rough. But she was the sister of my good friend, and that person also married my other good friend, and their family loved me already, and that whole picture of like the Brady Bunch of like the big picture was so important to me that it kind of tossed away all the red flags, which is not the best way. And it wasn't like she was a bad person. It was just because we're just in a different time. Like she was, she came from a crazy, her dad was like one of the biggest drug dealers in Russia. And her mom was a trophy wife, like beautiful. And then, you know, I think one day their KG, like the feds or whatever it is that they call it, came and stormed their place. And she was like 3 or 4 and never saw her dad again after that.
Whoa.
It's gone, whether dead, killed, or like in jail forever, don't know. Now the wife didn't own anything, so she's like this beautiful woman, and later now she starts noticing there's like different, like 10 men coming every night to the house, and she's 4 or 5 years old. She doesn't understand what's happening, but now kind of understands as what she had to do to survive. And that's sad to see as a 4 or 5 year old, right? And then later on, fast forwarding probably another 10 years, and she's already like 13, and mom got a new boyfriend, and then they were together for like a year, and then one day mom didn't come home, just never came home. So there's like already 2 times like she's been abandoned by her main people, and then the new boyfriend's grandma was taking care of her for like another year. She didn't have to, but she did. Like, where else is she gonna go? But the whole orphanage thing is huge in Russia apparently, so she had to go into the system. So imagine this beautiful kind of mixed Chinese Ukrainian girl in an orphanage that's filled from 13-year-old to 18-year-old boys and girls. And she's been abandoned all her life. Her insecurity was like that. So she would do anything to fit into any group. So, you know, she would lose her virginity to an 18-year-old boy there just to fit in with everybody, you know. And then fast forwarding later, like she was adopted by my friend's family, and that's where we all connected and da da da. And then we got to, so now, you know, the relationship was dope, whatever, you know, hardships. And then when we were breaking up, and this was like very immature of me to do, but because I understood her and where she came from and how she was being abandoned by all her loved ones and whatnot, I knew this relationship wasn't going to work anymore. And I didn't want to break up with her. I wanted her to break up with me. So I became so distant from her within the relationship that she had to do it to me.
It's like silent quitting.
Yeah, I guess so. But like,
but
I did it I did it only for that reason, because I didn't want to be another person in her life to abandon her, be like, this thing's over. Like, everybody's left me in my life and da da da. So I made her do that. And then, so we're still friends. Like, I haven't talked to her in a long time, but like, she called me one time and we're like catching up. And this was a long time ago. And she came up, she was talking about, and she said, you know how hard it was to be your girlfriend? And then we start laughing. I'm like, yo, was I that bad of a boyfriend? She's like, no, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. You pay for all our trips. I've seen the world with you because of you. Your friends are amazing. You have this dream job. You make so much money, this and that. You're successful and so many people respect you. She was, you know, 25, this is a long time ago. So I didn't know who I was yet. I didn't even finish school. I didn't know what job I was going to do. I didn't even know anything about myself, my strengths and weaknesses, insecurity, all that. And I had to stand beside you. You know how hard that was? And that's when I even realized like how timing is so critical when getting into good relationships. Is that even if you're doing good for somebody, you could really hurt them as well on their nurturing side. And that's one thing I realize what's important to be in a good relationship. Like, it has to be a good timing thing. Like, once I get to meet new people and I have a couple of conversations with them, I know right away, I'm like, I don't think you're all there yet. And that kind of goes with the habitual stuff. When people are used to doing certain things, to break out of that, it's sometimes either impossible, or hopefully one day they'll see it to change, whether it's their wellness or their relationship skills or whatever it is, you know? So, yeah, that's one thing I definitely kind of stand by. And I always encourage even myself all the time to, you know, I want to be my best version before I could say that I want to be in a next relationship, date again or whatever, you know?
I'm assuming you're not in a relationship.
No, I'm not. But I feel like I'm in the best place spiritually and everything else. But definitely there's one part that does bother me, and it's the whole income side of just my career, like, because it's changed so much. I just want to be a little bit more stable. Once I get there, you know, I will feel more confident as a man, I think, to just be okay. And when I say as a man, I'm not saying like, I'm not old school and be like, I'm need to take care of another person or anything like that. I want equal kind of thing. I love that. It's just something for me. It's just like, I want to make sure that this is right, because I don't want to come into a relation where I'm not fully confident in something. And it's like, maybe it's more on me, where I need to accept more help from other people, which I've been doing, which is a huge change from back in the day before. It's a conversation I've had with my sister and everyone else. It's like, yo, you never ask for help. I know you want help sometimes. And I'm like, you're right. no problem. Whenever I need whatever, so even just a chat or whatever, you know, no problem, you know. So those are a lot of things I learned throughout my, you know, once I started the whole wellness thing. So
yeah, no, I feel you on the wanting to be more complete as a person before you date.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm always open to my friends' feedback as to like, it's been 3 years for me, and my friends will be like, when are you getting back out on the dating market? I'm like, oh yeah, I got a couple things to fix, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm also starting to realize that the more you try to improve yourself in every aspect, and the more you prolong the whole dating aspect, the more the goalpost moves. And what I mean by that is like, oh, look at where I am now with my finances, where I am mentally, you know, where I am intellectually, and you're so far off that you're like, okay, well, a lot of these people don't even come close.
Yeah.
Right? And it continues to do that, where you get to the point where it's like, damn, no one can relate to me. You know, and I think
that's so funny that you say
and the main thing about dating in general, I've noticed through, you know, speaking to a bunch of different couples, is that the ones that usually work or, you know, stay together the longest, and what I mean by work is not just staying together the longest, but they're actually happy in a healthy relationship, are the ones that have built things together through their struggles in those relationships. But you know, I get what you mean, because I'm always like, I don't think you want to deal with my bullshit right now, so I'm not gonna put myself out there. But also, wouldn't you want to think the person who can deal with your bullshit is the person that will probably stick by your side?
And I think you're right. Like, I think when you have a good balance of those two things, of fixing yourself to the best of your ability, but also understanding that finding someone close enough that can relate to you and also be able to grow with you with the struggles that you have, sure, that's perfect. I think where I am in my life, sure, like I've had conversations with some of my female friends, like, yo, you know, they're okay with dating me, no problem. It's like, don't even worry about that. It's like, you know, you're right, like I shouldn't worry about it, like whether it's my career things, like I'm still gonna figure it out, because it's not like I'm sitting in my couch doing nothing about it. Like I'm trying every day, like to enhance something to make sure that I have more opportunities with my career or whatever, right? So I think once you even get to that realization, it's like safe enough to find someone relatable to you. And I agree with you for sure. Like I think it's important to find someone that could relate to you, understand and grow with you for sure. Because I talked about it with one of my friends as well. Like, you know, you become this superior being working on yourself too much. And it's like, literally, like, there's only one or two people that could relate to you on this planet. Like, there's no way, right? Like, so it's like, even one of my friends, her daughter's only 21, but because she was raised a certain way with wellness and just like so much structure, the only way she could date is someone my age at this point. And she's 21. And so I'm like, yo, how's the dating pool? It must be a disaster, because we understand the more you work on yourself, the people that are relatable to you become smaller. And she's like, oh my God, all the boys are so dumb. And it's like, yo, but that's the natural progression of, especially guys, like we mature a little bit later than women,
a little
right?
bit.
So
a little bit.
So like, so I totally get it. But I believe you're right. I think once you even get close enough to what makes you happy, I think it's safe enough to find someone that's kind of like on the same level as you, and then from there just kind of work on it together.
And sometimes it's you might not even have much in common. It could be things that they show you that you've never understood before or learned. You know, to me, I think you know, I'm like a serial monogamous. My relationships are super long. Like 10 years, 4 years. You know, they've always been something that I felt has value in the way that we learn off of each other, you know, and that's because we have different lives. And that means that we do things differently, different upbringings, you know, although there are similarities, right? Because I think morally and ethically, you guys have to align to a certain degree, or else it won't work at all. But everything else, you know, like I've learned how to relax. That's something new to me, right? I didn't know how to relax before. It's like on to the next thing, on to the next thing. If I'm not there for my work, I'm there for my friends. I'm not there for my friends, I'm there for my family. It was always everything but me, right? And then when I got into a relationship where they took care of themselves, and I was like, why do I think negatively of this? Like, why do I feel like it's almost selfish, right? And it was because I never gave myself that space. And then when I did, I was like, oh shit, like I could actually be a better version of myself if I gave myself the attention that I needed to be there for the people around me. And it's something that the only way I could have learned that is like through someone else. Like I was not picking that up through 30 something years of life. I never understood that.
I'm like, I truly understand. Like one of the two most important things I look in to be in a relationship, whether platonic, friendship, and love, is always like how much similarities we can carry together, and also what core values we share. And the more I feel like we do have, the longer lasting we can have. For me, I want to learn different things from other people. That's great. But at the end of the day, I could do that on my own. And most times I have no interest in them anyways. It's just like you know, I'm a music guy though. Like, so like, you know, some people are very specific with their music, but if you're a 90s R&B person and you know every song to like just say SWV and they're coming to LA, but your partner is a rock person that has no idea about anybody R&B, but still loves you. The relationship is amazing. And you kind of bring him to the concert and he has no idea. He'll still enjoy as much as he could, but he doesn't feel it like you do. Sure, that's great. But imagine having someone singing like karaoke with you beside you. And sometimes like I feel like those little things have a bit of a longevity to me. Although you guys can learn about different genres of music together. And that's great. But like at the end of the day, you're 40 years in or 30 years into you know what you like. And it's like, I'll let you do your thing and we could have our independent lives within our relationship, which is important too. But there's a huge difference with that, because even I've been at Super Bowl parties where my friend was a Patriot fan and the wife was the Eagles fan, or like, I don't know, the opposite team.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, you guys live together and talk to each other like this? It's like, oh, it's just one day of the year or like whatever it is. I'm like, this is crazy. But then I thought about like, you know, I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. I'm a hockey fan. But if my girl liked the Maple Leafs with me, it's not a must, but it's like, it's exciting. It's fun. It's like more things to relate to. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So I feel like similarities are important to me, but, but again, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things we could always learn from each other. And sure, when they have different perspectives and different upbringings, they can bring that within. But I think when it comes to like how we dress, to like how we whatever and how we conduct our lives, I think it should be similar as possible, I think, to make it work. Because, you know, even, you know, I talk to my friends that are really into like interracial dating. You know, some of my Asian friends, girlfriends that love black guys. Let's be real here. Okay,
go on.
And I'm like, I know my black friends as much as I could. I know how they walk, how they react to certain things, whatever. Some of my Asian friends, they just love the aesthetic of a black man, and just they're curious about it too, so they want to date that person. But when it comes to interracial relationship, and even for myself too, I realize that one person has to sway a little bit towards the other culturally. So when I see a successful marriage or a relationship that's just say Korean and black, just say American black, that black person is either really into some K-pop and Korean food type shit, or that Korean girl is engulfed in the black culture. Like literally, you can't see the Korean in her. She talks black. All her friends are black. Dresses, you know, like the culture. And that's why that works. She knows how this black man walks and acts. And just like an Asian guy too, like you have to understand, I'm Japanese. I'm a firstborn Japanese. We're taking care of the most out of everybody else if we have siblings, right? And it's like, if you don't understand the balance of all that, you can't just date an Asian guy just because you're infatuated with it. You want Asian, half Asian babies, or so. I've heard shit like that before, right? Yeah. And I'm like, yo, but you don't know anything about my culture. Like I try to take girls on dates in Atlanta and in LA, and they've never been to a Japanese restaurant in their life. And they're like, okay, let's go to my friend's Indian restaurant. It's like, what's that? What do they eat there? I'm like, holy shit. Like this fucking date's over in my head. But like, we'll still go. We'll still entertain this thing. Yeah. But like, this could never work. You guys are not cultured enough for me to like to relate to me. You don't know anything about me. We don't speak the same language. Like, you know what I mean? So and when I say language, not Japanese, we're not speaking the same language. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's one thing I realized just being in America, especially, like, you know, why people congregate within their own is because, yo, you want to eat pho? No problem. Let's go. Yeah. It's not even a question. You're going to like it. You're Asian enough. We good. You know, you ask someone else that might not. It's like, give or take yes or no. We just don't know. They never had it or whatever, and that's okay. It's not not a bad thing. I'm not saying everybody needs to be more cultured or anything. It's just like I understand what works when it comes to like interracial relationships, like one way or the other or whatever.
So I've never dated interracially, but I've definitely dated some whitewashed girls, right? So the territory that comes with that is, they don't know their own culture, your culture.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, funny enough, was exciting to me was like showing that and sharing that. I think because food's kind of like my love language. I'm excited for you to try this shit, right? Like speaking about pho, I'm like, dude, I know this bomb ass place. Like we should go here. And they're like, what's that? I don't even know how to hold chopstick. Okay, well, you can learn and try it. And then, if they love it, then it's like the best feeling for me. And I've noticed that outside of just, like a romantic relationship. Right. Like growing up, I loved, like I grew up in a predominantly Latino like community, right? Yeah. I love showing my Latino friends like Asian food. And now they go out and they praise it. They're like, yo, pho is like the best shit ever. Like I take my family and we go there. Yeah. And to me, I think that's how we grow together. Yeah. Not just about food, but like sharing our culture and like the things that we do. Like I can't say for a moment that everyone that I know is like open-minded to it, but the more I'm open-minded to it, the more that spreads for everyone else, and going back to what you're saying is being that example, right? So
but I think that's good that when you find someone open-minded enough, that's what the most you could ask for when you're interracially dating. I'm Japanese Canadian, but more I have a lot of pride being Japanese as well, and I don't expect them to learn my language. I'm not asking for that, but at least love and be curious about my culture enough to, kind of wanting to learn more about it and understand how important it is to me.
Would you be open if that you're the reason why that sparked that in them versus like they were always curious about Japanese culture? Like let's say you're the first person.
Like they didn't have anything, but then but that's it though. Like when you're open-minded enough, that's gonna happen. That spark will happen within them, and that's great. But like again, it's a dime a dozen. Like it's like not everybody's open-minded enough. Like some people can't eat broccoli till this day, like which is okay. You don't have to eat it, but like you get my point. Like it's like everybody's set in their own ways, a lot of them, and
it just sounds like you need to date open-minded people mainly.
I mean, and it's like it's really hard to find. Like you just have to have these conversations, and if I think I've been in the game so long of just meeting new people that I could tell right away if I could do business with you, if I could be friends with you, or I could be lovers with you or whatever, and or we could just be acquaintances, and that's fine. Like we could share ideas and whatever, but like a good 5-minute conversation, you could know right away if they're really open-minded enough, for sure. Like because after that it's just a little bit why.
Yeah, I mean I can see for some people. I think my approach has changed a lot since doing the podcast, just because I get to meet people from all walks of life. And I'm always thinking that we have a lot more in common than we have differences, and if we could go into a conversation like that, like I'm barely getting to know you today, right? And I feel like I'm connecting with you in a lot of different ways that I probably couldn't have prior to understanding it. Like, hey, just have an open mind and have this conversation where it's like I'm listening to you talk about dating. I'm listening to talk to me about your love life and your mistrust and how you grew up and how you're like trying to find wellness and also trying to find health and also being selective about the women in your life, right? Like that to me is all very interesting because it's different than what I know, but at the same time it's like before people, they don't even know how to socialize. It's difficult, like I used to work in the nightlife industry too, and with that industry comes a lot of people who seem sociable but are not really sociable. And what I mean by that is you could be surface level friends for years, decades even, and be like, shit, I don't fucking know jack shit about you.
That's true.
Maybe I know what you get to drink at the bar. Maybe I got to know if you had like a bad day at work, but what else? You know what I mean? Like when do I see you at the fucking next event? And I think it makes it where it's like it seems like we're actually going out and being social, but not really. Like, are we really getting to know people? And I think that's the difference, is actually getting to know people. And I think 5 minutes doesn't tell you enough, but that's just my perspective. Like I've learned to dig a lot deeper, and if I dig, I'm actually really interested in hearing what you have to say.
Yeah.
Like I learned so much, and I actually feel like we're actually connecting more so.
For sure.
Versus like, because I can't imagine someone telling me personally, no matter how much experience, I talk to elders and shit like that. I talk to people like 30 years my elder. They probably don't even know anything about me if they talk to me for 5 minutes, and we connect over a longer time frame, and they're like, oh shit, like I know this about you, that's really interesting, or like I think that you have a unique way of thinking about things. And I think that's really what's about, because I think if we have people in this like already this box that we feel like they define these characteristics, these 5 things that they can tell you in 5 minutes, and then what's the point of getting to know anyone? And I think personally for me, I understand why you might think that, I'm not saying fully because I don't know where it comes from, but like once you have those 5 minutes, like with some people you can feel how surface level is, you think, is it worth my time to dig?
And I think that was more my point for the 5 minutes. My 5 minutes was more to understand if I could even ask more about this person. Of course I'm not gonna find out the real nitty gritty about someone enough in 5 minutes for me to connect with them, obviously. But I think in 5 minutes, for me as a personality, I could understand if our personalities could mismatch in a certain way, from the way they speak or the way they look at me or interested in me or whatever. And that's when I want to carry the conversation more. I think that's what more of the thing that I meant when 5 minutes. But yeah, obviously I agree with you. I think everybody needs to be on this show to kind of get to know themselves a little bit more. I don't think everybody gets to talk about their life like this all the time, so people can forget who they are, like, with what they've kind of been through all their lives as well. So
and it's different to kind of put your life under a magnifying glass. What I mean? I think about all the things that has affected me through all these years, and like why I am the way I am. And being a stubborn guy, I used to think like, oh, this is just how I was born. Like genetically, this is how I am. But I think about the experiences. I'm like, oh shit. Like, okay, maybe I can change, and maybe things can get better. And
trust me.
Like talking about relationships in general, like I was the same person for so long in these long-term relationships, and I felt like this is why it worked, right? Because we were together for so long, so it's working. Only did I know that I was just forcing myself into a dead-end relationship because I thought things have to be a certain way. But I think being malleable and allowing things to change, like you're an advocate for change. That okay, like if this doesn't work or if this is not the best, we can improve on it, right? And what are those things? Like in your life, I'm sure you've met a gang of people, right? But it's like, how many people do you feel like are super close to you? And how do you get to that point, right? Like I've been in nightlife for like 10 years, and I could say I've met thousands of people, but at the same time, like how many people do I really know? And I think I've finally gotten to a point, and maybe because we're just getting older, I don't want to out myself, but it's like I don't mind surface level conversations, right? I don't mind it. It's there for a reason. Like I don't always want to talk about deep things, but also at the same time, like I really want to connect with people now. I actually really care, and to understand myself better, the way I am, is to understand my significant other better. It's funny because I'm learning ththings outside of relationships, right? Like I'll give you an example. One of the relationships I was in, I did not understand this. And being in nightlife, you stay out late, right? And there's alcohol involved. I know you got into it later, but I've been a drinker for a long time. But I'm also one of those guys where like I don't really mix business with pleasure. Like if I'm out running an event, I'm not trying to flirt with any girl, no matter who it is, right? Like I keep that separate. But obviously, if with insecurities, if you date someone who's insecure and you're out and there's alcohol involved and there's women and loud music and stuff like that, it could trigger something. And I did not understand that, right? I just thought in general, like, oh, you're just insecure. But there were certain traits and habits that she was exhibiting that if I had understood better, I would have been able to handle it better. So she was highly anxious. Like if I was gone for an hour where I didn't text her back, if I was out, I would get 50 phone calls. And you know what I did back then? I was like, she's fucking crazy. Like 50 phone calls an hour, that's fucking nuts. Like, why would you do that, right? Only to find out, like, oh, she's highly anxious and she needs someone to feel like secure, right? She needs me to like make sure that she feels like safe. And I never addressed it like that because I never understood. Like to me, it's so easy to write people off because they're not a certain way that you think normal people are.
Right.
But really, because, everyone just functions differently. Like I could say definitely I'm one of those guys where, you said you're not having a hard time opening up when you're in your relationships, right? Like you're actually the opposite of your parents.
Yeah.
I was actually like that. I was like a stone wall after
Yeah.
a certain point where it was like hard to connect with me.
Yeah.
And it was because I was afraid of getting hurt. I didn't understand
sure.
that.
Same.
I just
Yeah.
thought like maybe I don't have that range of emotion. Like no, now I'm like, damn, I do have that, and I just didn't allow it because I was scared.
When anything does happen, like your situation or someone cheats or whatever on you, it's like, again, you have to take accountability too and understand why they're feeling that. And that's something that I had to learn myself as well later on. And it's like, yo, I can't just simply say you're crazy or this is all your fault or whatever. This is something I brought out in you. Even if I was a good person to you, it's still, the love languages were different. And so that's another thing that I learned later as well. I had to know my love language, understand theirs. And looking back at the history, they were not my love language. I could not give them their fulfillment because that was not my way of loving somebody. And I couldn't give them that either because I was more career oriented and whatever. So, looking back and moving forward, I'm always looking out for them. Like, I'm not for you. I would never say that you're not for me. I would say I'm not for you because I can't give you what you need. It's like someone else will give you that no matter how much we connect on certain other things. And it's right. Like now it's like completely different. Like, when I've worked on my empathy, humility, like, emotional intelligence, I wear my heart on my sleeve always. I'm not afraid to get hurt ever. And, I think once you check your ego out the door, you're not taking anything personal anymore. And when you work on your emotional intelligence at the same time, you're able to put your feet into someone else's shoes to make yourself understand why they were anxious or why they're feeling the same, whatever. And so, and that kind of helped me towards being able to forgive people easier as well. And kind of once you put all those in one perspective, you just become this better person and kind of, hey, you backstab me? Sure. It's okay. I understand why you did it. It wasn't right, but I understand.
Yeah.
Maybe I provoked it doing well on one end or whatever. Maybe I did something. I don't know. Like whatever, but I'll take accountability for it. I'll forgive you, but we won't never be the same in a sense. Now I know what more of a people I want in my circle, and it's definitely not going to be, I'll love you from afar, but like, this is how it is. Like,
All right. So I want to talk to you about cheating.
Yeah.
So I've talked about this before where I've been cheated on, but I found out about it after the fact. And I was so far gone that I didn't get trust issues from it because it didn't feel like it even affected me. But in a sense, like I think that there's a reason why people get hurt by it in a relationship. It makes sense because you put so much time and like your effort into a person that when it feels like they betrayed you, right? You gain trust issues. In your instance, how did you get past that? I mean, it sounds like it took a little bit of time.
Yeah, I definitely, I came to a place where I needed to understand why people do it. And it's not a new story. It's like a common thing that happens all around the world.
Yeah, forever.
And to kind of see the trend and why, I would look at certain scenarios of my experiences and also my friends' experiences and even people that I don't even know and why it happens. And generally speaking, when I look at it, most of the people that do it, either one, haven't found themselves yet. Two, they're pressured or rushed into something culturally or whatever, and they get with somebody that's totally not relatable until later they realize that they're not made for each other. But then also too, I realized us humans we're not really meant to be with one person forever. It's a choice, and it's a beautiful choice, but you can only make that beautiful choice when you found yourself to the best of your ability and surround yourself with like-minded people and finding a dating pool of people through like how we talked about before. And I think when it comes to that, when you're with someone that's the best it could be for you, it doesn't have to be it's going to be impossible to find perfection, right? Obviously. I would say at least 75% someone that's relatable to you, you know. Everything else you guys could work on it together. But I think when the higher it is, I feel like even when love changes, not fades, but you know how love and lust like changes after honeymoon and everything else, you still have your good friendship that you have and the things that you built towards each other. And I think that's more of a longevity than anything. You know, people that still have long-term friends right now can relate to each other, still doing the same things together, can talk about the same things, enjoy the same things together, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I think kind of when you use those examples, when you don't have that in a relationship, people will get it somewhere else. And I think that happens. Those are some of the reasons I found why people do cheat. If you ask anybody who cheated, you ask them these questions, why? It's because this person, we didn't have money anymore. I lost interest. This is not the person that I thought he was or she was. Or they got in a slump and their slump is way too long. Like whatever it could be. It changed the dynamics of what you thought you were sold on from the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I think when you date for the first time, I feel like people don't know how to date either. You don't know how to ask the right questions. And, you know, my friends would joke that women be like, oh, so what do you want me to ask? I want to get married next year. So should I just tell a first date that I want to get married right now? I'm like, calm down. No, that's too aggressive. But there's smart ways to ask that. You could ask him or her, when was your last relationship? If they just broke up with somebody last month and they were in a 7-year relationship, you know, there's things that you should understand about that dynamic, whatever it could be. There's a reason, you know, some people never single in their lives. They just jump. That's an insecurity that's created within certain things, right? But like once people know how to date people from the beginning, ask the right questions. If your goal in the next 2 years is to have kids and to get married, you should talk about that at the beginning or ask questions that can relate to that answer that you want so you could get to it right away. Because some people don't want kids today. They just don't. They don't want to get married. They don't think it's important. They think being in a relationship is important. That's the most important part. So it doesn't have to be on paper or anything. Some people think that's great. But like you need to ask the right questions in what's important to you. And I think people, when they meet each other, I think, you know, right away, a lot of people do this. Like they put on a little bit of a front.
A mask, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like now you pretended to be someone else. Now you have to be this person that you're not. And you front yourself for like maybe 2 years. And then finally your true self comes out and they're like, oh, who are you? I don't know. And then that's when the relationship starts changing and whatever. Everybody starts going different paths. And then I start seeing cheating, and that's one aspect of it. But there's so many reasons, right?
Of course.
So
you feel like understanding why people do the things they do,
yeah,
is one of the ways that you got past feeling those insecurities,
right?
Like not being able to trust the future people they date.
Yeah,
I agree with that. 100%. And I think, you know, in the case of like what happened to you, right? I think allowing yourself to, you know, it's funny, right? Because I think cheating a lot of times comes from a place of hurt, right? Meaning they were hurt by someone else, by you, or the mistrust in the relationship, right? Like, I think any rational, level-headed person wouldn't, because what's the thing that people always say when people cheat? Like when you criticize them, what's one of the things they say? Like, why not just break up? Right? That's very common. Like, why not just break up? Why do you have to cheat? Right? And that's the question that I've always thought of for so long. Like, why? I don't understand. Like, you just say like this, you don't want to be in here anymore, right? But I think going back to what you're saying, like if you don't reveal the most honest and authentic version of yourself at the very beginning, it's really hard to bring up later. So they feel like they stick it through, right? And then they fall out of love, or, you know, maybe the love is like fading, whatever it is, and they don't know how to break it to the person. Like you know how you said that was, especially in your case with your girlfriend, where it's like you had to distance yourself so that she would break up with you, right? Because some people are afraid of hurting others. Some people are afraid of having that conversation, so they stick it through, or they think they could get away with it, and they, you know, end up being with someone else.
Breaking up is definitely hard to do. The confrontation more than ever today with people, how they are now, as an 80s and 90s kid, it's different. We had to do it a certain way. We had to do it in front of each other's faces.
We couldn't text them.
There's no but today everybody's comfortable breaking up over text after a 2-year relationship.
I think crazy, it's insane.
Right? But like, not everybody, but like, I've seen it happen.
Definitely more common.
But yeah, it's the whole cheating thing. I got to learn about it more so by like everything that I just said, by understanding why people do it. Where before I took it so personal, just to me, this is just happening to myself, and you can't believe you just did it to me. But then I never took any accountability. Didn't also understand where they were coming from, why they did it, and where they were at in their lives. Like, if I'm gonna put myself in war with no gun and no weapons, 99% I'm not gonna do well in the line of fire. But like, if I go with all the ammunition, of understanding why, I'm gonna do a little bit better. And I think when you don't want to try to understand the other person, where they're from, understanding their red flags. I don't want to say red flags. Everybody has certain things, right? Like, hopefully people can work on it and whatever. But like, red flags are sometimes just like people still working on, and also, sure, it could be a flaw to most people, but I don't want to criticize people where they're at in their lives. I had the worst of them all, like, when I was younger, but I don't have any of the ones that I used to have anymore. And to overcome it, I just really wanted to understand, and also wanted to do better. Like, I think the want, I think a lot of people are curious of even just going to counseling. But if you don't want to go and want to learn, there's no point in spending the $100 to $200 an hour to kind of talk to a professional.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you're just going to be wasting your time. But like, when you want help, you have to be ready for it as well, I think.
Yeah, it's like how you said, when people go see counseling or therapy, like, if I've done couples, like therapy, right? Does not work if the other person's not in it with you.
Yeah,
does
100%.
not work. Doesn't matter how much you guys think it's gonna be beneficial to your relationship. It just becomes a waste of money, right? For me, when I went through it, I could not have the other person open up to the therapist, like, honestly, about our relationship. I just felt like everything was sugar coated, and I'm just talking about my own, like, specific, scenario.
Right.
And from there, like, it just clicked in me. It's like, oh, you actually don't want what's best for us. You just want what people to perceive you in a better light.
Right.
And I think that's what it is. It's like, you go seek something like, couples therapy. You have to be honest about what's going on, right? If you want what's best for your relationship. And I'm not saying that that's like the cure to everything, because it's usually people's like last straw, right? It's usually the last resort when you're like, all right, let's give it a go one last time. Couples therapy, if it doesn't work, it's over. And I think it clicked to me that a lot of the times, if you're stepping in that office, like, it most likely already isn't going to work. Because a lot of the issues that you should have been talking about, you never resolved within the relationship. And that's difficult when you view it as like, we should be working together all the time, because that's the way I see things, right? It's like, anything that you want to address in your relationship, you should already address it. I think having a therapist is only allowing you to expand on the things that you don't understand. Not so much that like, oh, this is something you guys should have done. No, you probably should have already been doing that. You know, for me, a lot of the relationships I've had, like, now that I'm older, I'm very much like honest about how I feel about things. Like, I don't really hold back too much, like how you're saying with your friends, like talking about marriage and stuff. Yes, of course, there is like a time and a place, right? But make sure that you reveal it at one point, right? Because the longer you go into it, just like how, people who've been in the ways for so long, like, the less likely you're going to talk about it. So for in your specific scenario, like when that happened to you, and you felt like, why me? And like, this must be something wrong with me. That's something that hurt you for a long time, right? And I think I've come to understand something. I heard this quote recently. A lot of people don't want to be healed. They want to be untraumatized, right? But the thing is that, once it's happened to you, it's a part of your life. It's already happened. You can't untraumatize yourself. It's already happened, right? You can only heal from it. But in your scenario, like, moving forward now, you're open, or you're getting closer to open to dating. How do you approach it where you feel like you trust your instincts because of your past and the things that you've learned, but at the same time you want to be open? Like, how do you approach that?
Honestly, just using everything that I've been through as just like catapult to just kind of like approach everything more differently and strategically, and just enjoying the moment, having fun. It's really simple now, more than anything. I'm not trying to have a huge interview with somebody or anything like that. I know what I want. And if this person can kind of be part of what I like, and I could fulfill them with what they need also, then, you know, those are the things I look for. And that's really it. Like, you know, I don't regret anything obviously from before. I'm glad I've been through all the hurts that I've been through, because I don't think it would have got me to this place of understanding about why I wanted to work on it so much and be so eager to understand about, you know, relationships and wellness and everything like that. So now moving forward, it's like it's real simple. I just know right away like what I want, what I need, and if I feel like this person's not in the same wavelength or even timeline of just being all the way there to their ability, I'm just like, you know what, it's just bad timing, and I'm okay with that. Like, and I'm happy just being on my own too. I have so many friends and family. Sure, like I love love. I love love too. Like I love to be loved, and, you know, loving someone, and that's a beautiful thing. But it's, to me, it's like I want to make sure that I'm with spending it with the right person. And it's like I'm not sure if it's supposed to be that easy to do. It's just I think once you work on yourself the best way possible, you're going to be closer to what you want. And yeah, and once I get back out there, I'm like, you know, it should be fine. Like, but
so I want to ask you one thing. Even when the person cheated on you, you mentioned that you took accountability also. Like, what did I do wrong, right? Yeah. What's one thing that you feel like in your relationships that you've been struggling with, but you've learned to take accountability for it?
Definitely the wall part, communication wise, early on from high school, college area, like, you know, definitely. I think that stemmed from my upbringing as well. It's really hard for me to talk about my real feelings and what bothered me, confrontation, and just kind of everything like that. And I think that's one of the things that definitely I got over and helped me. I knew that those were roadblocks in my life to do better in departments of just relationships in general, like not just love, but friendship too. So, and those were important things to me. And I think I'm just lucky that I really felt so strongly about something I wanted to change about. Like, I don't see anybody so eager to, I fucking want to be a different person tomorrow. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't just work that way. Everybody's okay with what they are, and that's fine. Like, you know, but I definitely wanted to do better in a lot of aspects of my life, and being able to see so many successful people in different departments in their lives, I think I'm grateful for that too. And once you see the best of the best, and the way they handle things and whatever, it just encourages you to do well. Like, I've been in the same room of so many amazing people, whether they're famous or not. And I'm just grateful for that, because you get to learn so much by just watching them speak or listening to them speak or watching them move. And that's it, you know? So, I think that's kind of like the way I've been approaching and kind of got over the cheating and just being able to, it was incredible. It was night and day, like when I was younger, how much it bothered me, like really? Back in the day. Yeah, when I was younger.
Can you kind of go into detail about how much
it
bothered you?
I just didn't trust anybody. I just didn't want people in my life like closer than this line. Like, that's it.
Really?
Yeah. And it built such a wall around me, and to the point where some people that knew me that I should trust, then they're just friends. I'm not dating them or anything, and they don't even know me. And that hurt me a little bit, and it was all my fault for not letting. I was so into this hurt from some other department that it translated into the friendship department, and they had nothing to do with anything. They didn't never hurt me. Why are they suffering because I suffers from something else? And so that's one thing I really, you know, because I see it all the time when someone gets cheated on, and then they're like, I'm never trusting another guy again or another girl again. And I'm like, yo, or I'm never going to be this person taking care of them and doing all this for them. I'm like, yo, stop. That is one of your best traits as a human being. Never give that up, please. This is one of the reasons why I love you as a friend or family member or whatever. You should never lose that. That's your biggest quality. You're going to take that down. You're going to be not that person anymore. Why? Like, just because someone took advantage of that was just a bad choice and a bad timing situation. You got to accept it, move forward, but don't take yourself down with it. Like, you know what I mean? So that's why when I say I wear my heart on my sleeve, like I'm not, if someone does me wrong, it's not going to affect my character ever. Like I'm still going to be the Daniel or baby you, be able to take care, be, you know, like the person that I am. Like, and so kind of once I started looking at life like that, I'm just like, you know, I want to keep being this person. I want to not be taken down by people that are trying to take me down by purpose or not. Like, you know, because you could easily become that person again when you're being hurt so many constant times, right? So consistently. So I make sure that doesn't happen to me. And yeah, once you put that all together, it's just like this is kind of like where I am and how I look at it when it comes to cheating. It doesn't bother me ever. Yeah.
No,
like I'm okay if I'm with somebody and your baby daddy is good friends with you and y'all need to take a trip with the kids, yo, go. I'm good.
Wow, that's very secure.
Yeah, I'm not worried about anything like that. If these people are still good people in your lives that could kind of still be good benefactors or like just like influences in your life, yo, please keep them. I should never dictate how your life should be. You know how short our lives are? Like no one should ever dictate how your life should ever be. And so when I see these toxic relation, when people telling you that you can't do this anymore because you're with me and I own you, I'm like, that's not a healthy relationship, bro. Or like, yo, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so that when I kind of understand it like that, I'm like, I never would want to be that person ever. Like I feel like we were given a chance here. It's like a one in a cut. The number is too long to be, you know, the chances of you being you on this planet, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's a privilege to be here. And I just want to have a good time, have fun and be kind to others. And also just, you know, influence as many people as I can on the most positive note. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast with you and whatnot. And when you kind of look at just life like that, it just becomes really simple. And that's why I look at it like that. Like, I just want to make sure that nothing in my life was a regret. And also all the hurt that I get, I'm so glad that it happened to me because, you know, now I see it more better and clearer, you know, and the people that don't, I hope you do, but it's because, you know, you should be your best self all the time. Right. So
that's it. Thank you for sharing that. Because it's funny, just talking to you for the past hour and a half, 2 hours, I could see how far you've gone.
For sure.
I could really feel it in the way you talk, you know?
Yeah.
Like I can't exactly tell how you were before, but I can see how far you've gone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that only shows up when people have been hurt really, really bad.
Yeah, for sure.
That you could get, because you can't live with it otherwise.
Yeah.
Imagine if you never changed your mindset and you live in that same like jaded perspective where it's like you can't get anyone to be close to you because you can't trust them, you know, and how it bled into your life outside of just romantic relationships into friendships, you know, because I see this all the time, like with my own friends, you know, where it's like something bad happens and now all of a sudden everyone's a bad person. Yeah. To me, I can't imagine living like that because I think in general, it's a weird word to use now, or maybe it's the appropriate word, but I think life is about having faith, right? Like in like positive things. Positive outcomes, right? Like you could be with the next person and you know you might be like, hey, I don't know if they're gonna cheat or not, but I'm gonna allow them to do what they do. I'm gonna trust that hopefully they don't do me wrong. Right. You have to have faith in the relationship to do it. You can't go into it thinking negatively and like,
hell no,
this person is gonna do me wrong.
No,
like,
of course
I gotta watch her every move, right? Because that's not a life that you want to live too.
No,
I can't even.
It's exhausting.
It is.
That's and that's one of the things I wanted to change. Also, because when you're cheated or a cheater, you become paranoid being in any relationship, even if that person's done nothing wrong to you or anything. And that alone is tiresome. Like it's unhealthy. It's like constant ideas you're coming up in your head. Like you're creating like this whole separate movie in your head that's untrue. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know how some people still, because I came from that place. So it's like, I don't know how people want to always stay there. But then, you know, again, like how you said before, like some people enjoy the trauma. They want to be in that space because maybe, and I might be wrong, they like to be known for that person. It puts them in a pedestal from being, you know, being hurt all the time or something makes them feel special. I don't even know.
Yeah,
but there's stuff like that.
Yeah, there's sometimes people who just want to be the person who hurts the person versus rather than being the person who's getting hurt.
Yeah,
you know, and it's almost like they're taking control of this. And it's funny because I've heard this a lot too from friends that I know that have cheated. They'll tell me specifically, like, I want to do it before they did to me. And I'll ask them, like, has that ever happened to you? And they're like, in past relationships it has. And that perspective, that viewpoint on relationships, move forward with them into new ones, even though this new person didn't do anything wrong. They're already in their mind preemptively like, I'm gonna protect myself by cheating first, and which to me is like, I cannot even imagine that, you know. Like I can't speak about it from like a personal experience, but just hearing about it, I'm like, damn, like you must be hurt really bad if you perceive everyone else to be the same.
And that frustrates me when I hear stories like that too, because I kind of joke about it and be like, yo, you guys are still in high school thinking that way. Because, you know, when you're kids, you don't know what you're doing. And it's like you let your ego take over, and, you know, someone does bad to you, you want to do something bad back to them, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, I'm way past that. I'm beyond that. If you're still in your 30s or 40s and still thinking that way, like, unfortunately, you're not evolved enough to understand where I'm at either. And it's like, yo, if you're still running around trying to cause revenge and be like, oh, I'm gonna cheat before I'm like, yo, what are you doing, man? What are you doing to yourself? Like, it's stressful, dude. Like, you know. So yeah, I totally, it's definitely frustrating to see some people are still there, but I hope people get out of those kind of state mindset, you know, because it's not good at all.
Yeah, it's not healthy for anyone. But I think it starts like this, with having these kind of conversations, you know, because I've definitely, I'm gonna out myself a little bit, right? I've definitely been complicit in those scenarios. Yeah. Right. I've definitely stood by the sidelines and been like, all right, well, I didn't see shit, right? Like, I don't want to be involved. I didn't see shit. But I've come to understand, like, hey, sometimes you have to be the one to step up and be like, yo, dude, like, you can't be doing shit like this. It's not right. Yeah. And if you do that, it's like you're kind of stopping the hurt from spreading, right? Like hurt people. That's a popular quote. And typically people who cheat have been cheated on, you know, or have seen cheating kind of like destroy their family or whatever it is. And the only way you stop is it stops with that person, right? It stops with you. Like, for you to understand, you're like, okay, I understand. Like, I've been there. I could have gone the other way. You could have definitely gone and leaned in to do the same thing that got you there in the first place. Yeah. Or you learn, you understand why, like, okay, it needs to end here, at least with me. And
you know, not to disrespect people that are still on a toxic wavelength at a certain age. I know everybody has a different timeline. Luckily for me, I was able to fight the demons that I had younger at the right time. Now I get to work on myself in my 30s into my 40s and whatever. Yeah. Some people have a shift. Like, some people have it in their 30s or 40s and then they finally get it and da-da-da-da. So that's great though. Like, you know what I mean? But hopefully the main point is to find that, to be able to get out of like any toxicity trait that you may carry. And there's always a reason for it. It stems from something, just like how you said. It's true. Everything stems from something, from a hurt, it could be the most lightest thing, from when you're a kid to whatever. These are all clinical trials that were tested on, and why people, from like being obese to whatever, there's like a lot of things that happen to certain people growing up, from divorcee parents to, like, you know, sexual abuse to bullying to, like, just even the most lowest form of, like, you know, whatever it could be, could traumatize you because it was a big deal to you, right? And it's like, and so, you know, I think the first step is to really understand that there is something that people need to change, like traits and whatever. But if you can't get to that step, you're still not there. And it's like, hopefully one day you can, like, you know, like, everybody has their timeline. Sure, I don't want to disrespect anybody saying like, yo, you're acting like you're 16 at 30 something. You know what, that's a different time thing for you, and that's it, and it's okay still. But like, I just hope that these people get to find themselves, like, during the time, and finally be like, yo, I need to change. Because I was able to in my 20s, but then that was the help of me being in the industry that was like injecting me with so many opportunities of so many different things when it comes to friendship and betrayal, to like backstabbing, and to even beautiful things and good things too. It's not all about bad things, like, you know, but like, I got to see it like so much of it right away, so I was able to work on it. Maybe if I didn't have that, I don't even know. Maybe I'll be in my 30s wandering, trying to find myself too still. Like, you know what I mean? So, but I'm glad that I've been through, because everything defines who you are, right? Like, as long as you're able to harness it, I think.
Thank you, dude. And I think there's one thing I want to ask you.
Yeah.
So through all these experiences of your life,
Yeah.
right? It sounds like you're a very experienced person. You kind of had to grow up a lot faster than a lot of people being in the industry. What is your biggest takeaway from all that?
I think gaining the understanding of myself, just kind of, it's kind of cheating a little bit, but just putting everything in one ball and just making the person that I am. And today, just understanding the psychoanalytics of just people. That's really interesting to me, like the way people receive information differently with one scenario, and kind of like being able to understand other people and the dynamics of me being able to connect with people. I think that's one of the greatest takeaways I was able to do within all my life, just to be able to connect with people. I love meeting new people. I love making new friends, whether platonic or love or whatever. And I was able to do it in a bigger pool where I've traveled to over 50 countries. I have friends all over the world. And it doesn't change much, different problems in one country to another. It's actually pretty similar, like everywhere. You can't really run away from anything, but I was able to kind of like put myself out there and just kind of be able to like experience so much in that sense, and meet so many people. And that connection of people is, I think, I always thought I was an introvert, but like it's completely wrong. I'm an extrovert. I really love being around humans, being able to go out.
That's interesting. How did that change?
I don't know. Maybe I just put myself in that category of being in the studio all the time, and just, I thought just all creatives were supposed to be introverts, so I just kind of put myself there. But then just kind of understanding myself before, where I was so shy and just kind of like, although I hung out in the most popular groups growing up in Toronto to wherever, it's just, I was such a quiet person all the time. And now it's like different. Like I'm so outspoken and whatever. But sometimes the shyness comes out. But I think I just realized, like, once I saw how I did well with people, with more people around me and meeting new people, I was like, the dopamine was always like like this. So I think that's when I realized, I'm like, yo, I am a natural extrovert. And it's amazing that I am, because, you know, now going back to your question before, it's just like I'm able to connect. The takeaway from all the experiences, like being able to connect with so many different people around the world, whether age, race, or whatever, it doesn't matter. I have friends from like 21 all the way up until like they're 60. Like it's all fine. Like different dynamics, whether I play hockey with them, I, you know, do work with them, I party with them, or whatever it is. So I think that's the greatest takeaway for sure.
Going on the opposite end, I want to ask you, what do you feel like has been your biggest struggle?
Nothing. I don't know. It's like nothing now. Like, sure, there could, nothing's perfect, or there could be issues, but it's not like a big skill of a problem anymore. Like it's maybe before, the Daniel 20 years ago would have looked at it as the end of the world. But now I look at it as you know, just like how we were talking about wellness before, like I could walk outside in the sun and just, you know, wander without my phone. I'm meditating at the same time, because I'm thinking about just life, how my friends are doing, my family's doing, how I'm doing, just random things, and just kind of being able to meditate on my walks. Just doing simple things like that just centers myself so much that big problems before are still minuscule to me. It's just like, I'll figure it out. Like it's all good. So it's like, really, to answer that question, sure, I'm not perfect, or like there's nothing, the most perfect thing happening to me, but because I'm able to take care of my wellness, I can't think of one thing that the biggest problem for me in my life right now. There isn't. Like I'm happy with everything. If everybody, when they ask me how I am, I'm like, I'm amazing. I can't explain to you, but I'm just amazing. They're like, oh my God, I love that energy. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I got three questions.
Yeah.
So first question is going to be, what makes you uniquely you? What makes baby you, Daniel, uniquely himself?
Not a one of one, but I'm really good at putting people together. I love listening to people's stories, and then making me understand each individual like that, and being able to put different people together. I started a birthday thing where My 38th birthday. I travel different cities and celebrate my birthday. And my roommate at the time, he's still my roommate, David, he asked me, hey, you want to go to Vegas? Just me and you for a birthday for the weekend. I'm like, sure, no problem. and but he's the type that gets really excited. He can't hold a secret. He just loves talking about juice. And it got around to my sister that wasn't connected to anybody. And she's like, hey, so I heard you're going to Vegas for your birthday. And I'm like, how the hell? It's just me and my roommate. Why are you coming? She's like, I'm coming. And I'm like, all of a sudden it was just me and my boy turned into 40 people coming to my birthday. God. And then from then on, the year after I did Vegas again, I got 2 big ass mansions and kind of because I knew I was the only one that knew everybody, I put everybody in different houses, understanding each and everybody's characters. I think these guys will connect together.
Whoa, that's wild.
Yeah, dude. I know, right? And then, so for my 40th birthday, I did the same thing in Tokyo, Japan. We went to Tokyo.
Don't tell me you got 40 people.
40 people came. Like people from Canada, US, like people from parts of other Asia came. And literally we took over this entire apartment, like a apartment complex with like 10 rooms. And I bunked each person that I knew that would get along. Some people didn't even know each other. They haven't met yet. And it's the craziest thing now is some of these people are better friends with each other than they are with me. Like, wow. And so that's one thing I'm very proud of. Like, I think if you're going to ask me what's unique about me, and it's nothing new. There's people like this everywhere, but I take pride in being able to connect people together. And it makes me really happy. You know, some of the people that I know that are married now, they wouldn't, I don't think they would have met each other if I wasn't in their lives. I might have hooked up them with like one of my other friends just as a group, and their friend married my friend, like in a sense. But in my head span, I'm like, there's no way you guys would have known each other. It's like two different worlds, right? Like, so that makes me happy too. Like, you know what I mean? So I think that if you're gonna ask me that, that's my secret special power. Yeah.
You should be a matchmaker, bro. I think that's the next business venture right there. I know, right? To my next question. Yeah. What was a monumental event in your life that's like changed everything?
I mean, there are those. I mean, there's a couple things. I mean, the bad. It wasn't bad. Like, you know, the car accident alone kind of opened up my life, so that my eyes and my mental just really. I think when you're near death situation, like for sure, if I wasn't wearing a seatbelt, I would have been through the front window and I'm probably dead. But it just that alone for sure kind of definitely opens your mind for sure. The perspective of how you look like anyone else, you know what I mean? And that kind of propelled me to change in so many different ways, but also, you know, career wise, just moving to the US, you know, that was a monumental thing for me to kind of come from a big city in Canada and just kind of doing the same thing in another country where it was dominated by all sorts of people already. I'm the new person in town and they were able to accept me and kind of, you know, that was definitely, I think I would say those two things.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for my last question, how do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? So this is an interesting question because I was talking to one of my friends and I was thinking about this myself. To just simply answer your question, I just want to be remembered as a person that was good and kind to people, that was able to inspire, you know, as many people as good. For me, that's one of the reasons why I DJ is because, you know, when I'm on the radio or, you know, whatever it could be, you're listening to me in the traffic jam. If I could ease the pain for you to get home, I've done my job. And I used to get emails where, you know, a bunch of emails where people got married at the clubs that I DJ. They met at the clubs and they're thanking me for it. Thank you for bringing us good music. We were able to connect at the club and we're married now with 2 kids. Or like I've even got more serious ones where, you know, she was suicidal, but then she found out about me and listened to my stories and my music and she was doing so much better and whatever. So kind of like that's definitely how I want to be remembered, just to answer your question. But the interesting conversation I had with myself and my friends later on is that, in the next 1 or 2 generations, no one will know who you are, in a sense. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
even for me as baby you, that's leaving a breadcrumb, like a trail of like who I was with music. I might have a higher chance of being remembered, but like, just say I didn't do that. Just say certain people, yeah, the nieces and cousins will remember me, but then once they have kids, they're not going to know who I am. They're going to know that there was somebody, a uncle or like a great whatever, but they don't know me. That it's going to be forgotten, like it's gone. And the important part and the reason why I had this conversation with myself and my friends is that just the importance of how important now is right now, like, with what you're doing and how you are with people and what you're trying to accomplish in your life. The ikigai, the Japanese proverb of like just having reason of like what you want to do with your life, should be the most important thing. And once you realize how easily you're going to be forgotten anyway, like you should just live the best way you can, live as hard as you can, whatever that means to you, do it in the best way possible. So that's kind of like the extension of the answer. But like, yeah, it's like a interesting question that we were talking about actually a week ago. Like, so it's interesting that you brought that up.
Great answer. Actually. That was an awesome answer. All right, Daniel, thank you for coming on, bro.
No, I appreciate
you for sharing all your
thank you.
great stories, all the hurt, like your journey,
Yeah,
how far you've come, man. Can you let the audience know where they can find you?
yeah, you could easily find me at DJ Baby You, BABYYU on Instagram, and the links will be all on there from my website and my link tree and everything that's coming up from all the mixes, the events and stuff like that. So, but I appreciate you for having me here and just kind of being able to let me talk about myself and just share my story, and hopefully people can resonate to that and inspire them as well.
Now, I want to say special thanks to the audience for watching all the way through. Make sure you like,
Thank you,
subscribe, and comment below what you guys want us to talk about next time. And remember,
live
fast
and eat ass.